All right, guys. So I got started on those shocks, and let me show you what I'm up against here. So there's bolts on the bottom there. I'm attempting to take out, and you can see how they're kind of oriented and how they were put in, and now they're hitting, right up against our new mounts there for the leaf springs in the axle, because we flipped the axle. So before, that was below the axle, where it was never a problem from the factory. And I saw it before, I was like, it may or may not kind of work, but I was like, I'll give it a shot just to see, and it didn't work, obviously. So I think what I'm going to do is I got to hit these 4 bolts under here and just kind of lower that leaf spring while I've got the rear end and the axle supported, so I can lower that leaf spring out of the way and then remove that bolt. And then in the future, all I got to do is put it in the other way. So the head of the bolt's on, the inner side here where my light's going, over here as opposed to over here. And it should be fine. So I'm not worried about doing it in the future, especially with the new shocks we're gonna have to put in this thing, because I mean, these things are wrecked. I mean, wow, they are in bad shape. The bushings are all shot. I mean, as you'd expect, I assume. I mean, I'd like to think they've been replaced, but even so, these things are in bad shape. So that's where I'm at. I gotta break those 4 bolts loose, lower that axle. I mean, not the axle, but the leaf spring, and pull that bolt out. I'll have to do the same thing on the other side. And then I can get those shocks out and kind of see what the rear end does and those little shackles and stuff once I get it all bolted up back together. And I'll be back with you guys. Alright, so I finally got one of those shocks off of the truck. I'll show you guys now what it looks like and basically what I had to do to get all that squared away here. So there is the shock. And I left one in so you can kind of see, but I mean, I basically had to disassemble that whole suspension piece over there. The leaf springs, the shackles, at least in the front, and then the mount to the, from the axle to the leaf spring itself, I had to pull apart. Like I was saying, to get that, you can see the bolt right here on this side, how it comes out kind of to the left on this video. It just hits the metal piece right there that connects the axle to the leaf spring. So that's why I had to pull it all apart, drop it down. As you see, a little jack under it, so I can just lower it a little bit to get it out of the way, and then I can just cinch it right back up once I'm done. But basically, you got to pull that bolt out on the bottom, and then there's one up on the top. See if you can see that. I don't know that it's going to focus, but that's the bolt on the top there. The problem is when you start undoing it, this whole piece starts spinning. That little bell-shaped thing on top there, cone, I guess, maybe, and then the center shaft just spins freely with that bolt. So you pull off that little retainer on top. That helps, obviously, and then you have to try and clamp somehow on here, which I've found on the top of that bolt is like a squared off section to where I could get some vice grips on there. Clamp the vice grips on that little square section on the very top of that bolt that's not threaded. I don't know if you can see it or not, maybe. The very top of that bolt is just kind of squared off and not threaded. So I clamped vice grips on there to keep it from spinning while I was using a wrench on the bolt itself to undo that piece. And then, but what I'm going to do now is I'll get everything bolted back up over here. So that side's good to go, and then I'll do the same thing over here. I'll unbolt everything, pull it all apart, and we'll be ready to go. Then I can, essentially just allows me to set the truck down and see how the suspension is going to act without being affected by those old jacked up shocks. Which I'm assuming is hindering me to an extent, in the way the truck was not level on the horizontal axis. So that'll allow me to do that, but the other thing we have to think about is Christopher and I, my brother, we're debating, do we do a Crown Vic rear end on there? Do we put a Crown Vic rear end on the truck, to get the spacing right? Because the wheels right now, I don't know if you can tell, maybe from this angle, they're kind of sucked in. To where you'd have to have, maybe a good inch, 1 to 2 inches of space, to get the wheel kind of flush with the wheel well, at least a little more flush. You don't want to ride up against it, but You know, you probably want at least an inch, 1 to 2 inches, I'm guessing, and it's like, I don't know that we can really achieve that with spacers. We already have spacers on there now, just for the bolt pattern to get these wheels on there. And we're not going to stick with these wheels either. These are my brother has a 2011 Mustang 5.0, and these are just the original wheels that came off it, which bolt up directly to the Crown Vic front end, but they don't to the rear end, so we just got the adapters to bolt them on there just to get this thing rolling around out of his garage. But he wants those back because they're original wheels to his car, so we're going to put different wheels on it. We just don't know what at the moment. But the problem is the spacing. You know, you could do something probably with the back spacing of the wheels, but I don't know. We're kind of debating maybe we just do the rear end of the Crown Vic. That way you have you got 4-wheel disc brakes and all that, because I mean you got the disc brakes on the front from the Crown Vic, and then we just have to sort out the proportioning and all that crap, master cylinder, yada yada yada. But I mean, it'll make for probably a better driving truck anyway. Then I have to redo that suspension back there to a degree. I still think we can use the leaf springs and everything, but I don't know about the shock mounts and stuff. So that's another hurdle to clear kind of when we get there. But I at least want to get my goal right now is to get the bed done, get it mounted, get the welding done, and see how that's going to turn out, because I'm nervous about that myself, just because everything's not lining up perfectly. Which, I mean, obviously you wouldn't expect on a job like this, but we're just going to have to kind of get it done and see how it turns out. But anyway, I'm going to get all that stuff back together on that side. I'll get this side busted apart. And I don't think I'm going to show you getting this side busted apart. I mean, it's pretty much the same process I just explained. So I'll get it busted apart, put back together both sides, both shocks out, and then we'll set it down, and then I'll be back with you guys. All right, so I got both the shocks off the truck. I'll show you guys under here exactly what it looks like before I set her down. I was holding up that jack was holding up the rear end, but obviously the leaf springs are holding the load now. Shocks are gone, as you can see. And this one here on the passenger side still appears to be sitting a little higher. The angle of that shackle right there in the back. I'll show you the other side here so you can see. So that one seems like it's sitting a little, like it's leaned farther forward. You see how it's almost flatter? I can hold both of these on. So this piece here is kind of sitting, I guess, flatter, whereas the other one is more at an angle like that. Which I think is what's responsible for the ride height being kind of, or the truck being unlevel on the horizontal axis. But I'll get her jacked up, pop it off the jack stands, and then when I set it on the ground, that'll kind of be the true test here as to if we solved our problem or we still have to look at a different approach. And it appears as though we still have our issue. Just eyeballing it, I have no idea why that's doing that. I'm not sure if it's something just in the leaf spring itself, or just like a different length or something. You know, slightly over time, or one's weaker or stronger, you know what I mean? Just a quick double check here of our heights. Yeah, I can tell they're off. That one's a little over 21. That one's just under 20. So yeah, it's still sitting higher on the left-hand side for some reason. Not exactly sure what that's all about. Why that one won't lay down or why this one won't stay vertical, but I'm guessing that's kind of the issue right now. That one's like sitting where I think it's supposed to be. You know, it's not hitting the bed or anything, it's just more horizontal. I may lift up the bed and see if I can figure out what's going on this side here, just from the side. But yeah, I'll mess around with it a little bit here, see, and then I'll get back with you guys and what I can determine. All right, guys, I think I figured it out. So, check this out. Well, let me show you the other side first so you can see what I believe it's supposed to look like. So if you see right up here, see how this bottom leaf spring right here goes up into that little mount? You can see how those two are kind of both going up into that little mount there. Look at this side. And you can see that bottom leaf is jammed on the bottom of the mount. It's not going up in there like the other one. So, I'm 90% sure that's the problem. So basically all I'm going to do is jack this side of the truck up, try and compress that, you know, with the pair of channel locks or vice grips or something, and get it to slide up in there before I let the truck back down. And then I'll get back with you guys and we'll see if that fixed it. Alright guys, I'm back. So what I ended up doing was basically put some vice grips on this. And get my little trusty flashlight out here so you can actually see what I'm talking about. So on that, you can see now that leaf spring is going, can you see? There you go. Yeah, you can see that it's actually up in there and it's not rubbing or anything. So I just put a vice grip like right here, basically on those two leaf springs, and then mess with this piece here. Let me see if I can get you better. Yeah, mess with this piece here, kind of rotated it and rocked it while I had the truck jacked up and slowly set it down. You know, while I was jacking with this, I just had the jack and my other hand sitting there right in the same area on the back of the frame here. And I got it to slide up in there. The truck is sitting relatively level now. I mean, just putting the level on the bed. It seems relatively level. If you're looking at all the contact points, like right there, where I'm going to have to mount the bed to the frame, that one there, they're sitting flush. That one there, you can see the suspension is just behind. So you can see a little knuckle up there. I don't know if that's the right word for that, but that's what I'll call it. It's sitting behind the mounting point, so the mounting point is sitting flat on the frame. And of course, the last one in the back there. And it's the same on the other side. So it's sitting just behind, just like that. And I mean, this is a good look at, I think, how the truck is actually going to sit when it's all said and done. If you see it, I think, to me, it looks like there's a slight rake, or I guess a negative rake, where the back is sitting lower than the front. But I'm hoping the motor kind of, when we get the motor in and the fenders and all the junk on the front, you know, the front may come down an inch or so and kind of level it out. But obviously we won't know until we get all that stuff in, because the trans isn't mounted, the motor's not mounted, and of course all the fenders, the front, the lights, all that jazz, brake booster, everything else that needs to go on the front of this truck is going to weigh it down considerably. I'm guessing it's probably another 1,000 pounds worth of crap that'll be, you know, from basically the midpoint forward, starting with the transmission, motor, fenders, headlights, jazz, grill, all that crap. Hood. Well, damn, hoods are heavy. So, I mean, all that stuff should weigh it down. I think enough to make it level, which is what we're going for. We don't really want a rake, like a real, like hot rod rake, you know what I mean, to the front. That's not really what we're into, but we'll just have to see how it turns out. If there is a slight rake and it looks good, you know, I wouldn't be opposed to leaving it. We'll have to see how Christopher feels about it, but it wouldn't bother me particularly, especially if it runs and drives good. But that's pretty much how she's going to look. So what I need to do now is get the bed squared away as far as welding. I went over this before, but we just have to finish up all the welds here. All the welds through the center, on the sides. This side has to be finished up. All along here has to get finished up. I got to get all this crap out of the back of the bed that we use just to transport it over here from my brother's house. That has to get finished up, and this one has to get finished up. And these actually aren't that bad. Christopher did these before, and he was having some issues with the blow-through, which I'm sure I'll encounter myself when I get to it. See, that one's going to need some love there with, I think, the little gaps. I don't know if I can really fill that in, especially without blowing it through, you know. So that's going to be, I think, my next project, is to get the bed welded up. Then we'll get it mounted, because these two screwdrivers, as I said before, are going all the way through the mounting holes from the bed to the frame. And if you look under the truck, you can see the ends of the screwdriver sticking, you know, in the C-notch of the frame. So they're all the way through. So I think that's going to be kind of our guide. And I've got the bed measured up, you know, 1 1/4 inches from the cab, just like on the this one here, which is all factory short bed. Plus those mounting holes will help us too. I think they're the same for the short and the long beds. Obviously, they're the same distance, you know, if you will, from the front of the bed to the mounting hole. This poor thing, they're in here somewhere. Maybe. Yeah, there it is. So yeah, I think that, maybe if I move off it, yeah, you can see it's like almost like a carriage bolt. So that should be the same distance, I believe, you know, regardless of whether it was a long bed or a short bed, you know, as those right there. So that'll be a good starting point for us. And then, yeah, I just have to get this thing welded up and mounted. We'll be making some progress then. I'll feel a lot better about my life. I already do now, just getting those shocks and stuff out of there and getting the bed sitting right. So once I get all that set up and kind of going, I'll get you guys back in the loop and we'll keep it moving.